Welcome, Rory. We're really glad to have you here.
Thank you, Kathy. Great to be here.
Yeah, and thank you. This is a new, we all talk about meditation, but you're the first person I've seen that's put together the meditation and the alcohol specifically. So I thought that was really interesting. So so please introduce yourself for those who don't know you, what I left out from the bio, anything you'd like to add.
Yeah, great. So I'm super passionate about meditation because it's made such a big impact on my life. I've always had a tendency to overthink, and I've been an overthinker. I'm from an academic family. With my master's degree, I'm the least educated in my family. And I tended to use alcohol to cope with my tendency to overthink and to be anxious in social situations. Mm-hmm. And I reached a point in my mid-30s where I had what I call my early midlife crisis. And I decided at that point that I didn't want to be a hard drinking 50-year-old, 60-year-old. I was doing a lot of stuff in music. So I was a live musician in my 20s and a DJ, and worked around the music industry, and made this active decision in my mid-30s that I wanted to explore other ways to develop. And that involved me learning to meditate. And I was so thrilled about what I learned that I wanted to teach it. And I found that my desire to drink gradually faded over that time until I realized that I just was going to quit. And then I found that through my students of teaching people in person, I found that more and more people were coming to me with wanting to quit alcohol. And I've found that, meditation helps so much that I wanted to create a course around it. So this is something that I've been, it's been live in the world for a year and a bit now, and it's, really helping people. Looking forward to talking about it with you today.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think it's great. A wonderful, it's always just nice to have another tool to help people who want to change their life. It's always great to just, add one more thing. So you mentioned a little bit, but so what do you think the benefit, maybe going a little bit more about the benefits of meditation, especially with alcohol. So we know alcohol, can be very addicting. People really have a hard time letting go of it. It also, people can be, I think, also in denial for a long time about alcohol because it's so socially acceptable, and our societies everywhere promote it, so can you just talk a little bit more about that and how meditation really helps a person decide, maybe I need to quit and be more centered?
Yeah. So one of the key things that it does is it gives you a new way to relax. So a lot of people use alcohol to relax for whatever reasons. And it's, meditation is one of the best natural ways to relax. Now, there are lots of ways to relax, but it's been specifically designed to be an antidote to this overstimulated world. So the world we live in is full of stimulation, whether that's, news reports or exciting TV shows or external stimulants that we ingest. And meditation's a way of unpicking all that and bringing you down to your natural equilibrium. And when your body's in its equilibrium, you have less need to bring in other things from outside, including alcohol. So it helps us relax, it helps us de-stress, and stress is another cause for people to drink. So it removes those kind of triggers for making you drink. Now, it also changes the structure of your brain so that you can control your impulses more. So the way this works in terms of neurology is that when you meditate, and this has been shown by studies at Harvard, that less blood goes to your amygdala. So the amygdala is the part of your brain which is the fear center. So when that's promoted, you have this fight-flight response, and then you're tempted to turn to things like alcohol because you're not in your normal state. So meditation takes the focus of your brain away from that part to your cortex. So your neocortex is the more human part of your brain, mm-hmm. that takes care of things like decision making and emotions. So if you have more of your brain, you know, blood flow in your brain going there, it means that you're more likely to have a sensible decision-making response and less of that fear response, which is really going to help you. It also helps change your neural pathways. So a lot of habit building and addiction is through habit. So we keep going through the same processes that we always have. Mm-hmm. And what we do when we meditate is we use a simple tool to change how we think, and that opens up new synaptic connections in the brain, mm-hmm. which helps us break out of those ruts of behavior. So, you know, there are lots of other ways that we need to change our thinking, but it's going to mean that once you've made a decision, it will be a lot easier for you to stick to that, and it will change those mental ruts that you might be in.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. I know it's calming, and it does help you focus so much more. And you're right, as far as that fight or flight mode too. Yeah. So okay, great. That makes a lot of sense for someone who's just needing one more tool to help them. So you mentioned in your somewhere I saw in there that you mentioned instead of mindfulness, you use a self-transcending mantra. So can you talk a little bit about that? And then also one other thing, does someone, when they start your program, do they need to be completely free of alcohol, or can they just be in that early process?
Yeah, so maybe I'll answer that bit first. So, you know, they don't need to have given up alcohol yet. It's going to help them give up. So, you know, if they have already stopped, then by all means remain stopped. But if they haven't, that's not a reason to not do it. I would just recommend that they don't practice it while under the influence, mm-hmm. you know, mm-hmm. Because it's just going to make it harder. But your other question about mindfulness. So meditation's had a huge rise over the last few years, which has been great. But many of the most popular types around are mindfulness. So if you've come across Headspace or Calm, they use mindfulness, and mindfulness is the most common one. So you could think of focusing on the breath. That's a mindfulness technique. Or one is called body scan, when you place your awareness in your body, and that kind of takes you out of your thoughts. So all meditation techniques use what we call an anchor. So an anchor is something to take you out of your chaotic thoughts into something neutral. So the breath is something neutral. It will take you out of your head. Now, where this technique differs a bit is it uses this self-transcending mantra. So a mantra is a word or sound that you repeat silently in your head. So you're not chanting out loud, you're just repeating it in your head, which again is an anchor, but rather than using the physical sensations of the breath, it uses sound. So sound tends to be more relaxing to more people because we have this intrinsic resonance with sound where we find it relaxing. So whether that's from, you know, hearing lullabies when we were children or listening to music, one of the biggest searches in Google for meditation is meditation music. And while music is, I would call it more meditative than actual meditation, it shows that people have this connection between sound and relaxation. So we think this mantra, and it draws us inwards to a state of stillness. And the difference between mindfulness is that it can then take you into this state of pure inner silence, because your mind becomes so absorbed in the mantra that it forgets to think any other thoughts, and then you fall into this place of silence. So one, it takes you to another level. So rather than always being, I'm either in a thought or I'm thinking about my breath, I'm in a thought, I'm thinking about my breath, it can draw you into this state of kind of switching off your mind. So when that happens, you're not aware of anything going on. It's as if you've switched yourself off, but you're still awake. So by visiting this state of pure inner silence, it's like, you know, restarting your laptop. Your laptop might be going, you know, it's got too many programs going. It needs a break. So it's like that with us. There's a saying that says, everything works better if you switch it off and on again, including you. So meditation is a way to switch yourself off. So the mantra tends to be, an easier way to do it. And another key difference is that in most mindfulness techniques, we sit upright with our no support on our back, which can be quite uncomfortable if you're not, a practiced yogi, which many of us aren't. So I always found when I did mindfulness is that it would be uncomfortable, and that would be distracting, and I wouldn't look forward to doing it because of that. Whereas in this technique, we sit upright, but with our back supported, which is a lot more comfortable. So you'd sit as if you were reading a book or watching TV.
Okay.
Which, makes it more accessible as a kind of easy way in.
Right.
And there's also another difference where, and this counts for all meditation, but people have the misunderstanding that when they find themselves thinking in meditation, they're somehow failing. But the way we describe it in this type of meditation is that thoughts are an expression of a stress being released. So it's a good thing if you find yourself thinking. It's not about how consistently you can stay with your anchor, whether that's a mantra or the breath. It's how nonchalant and unfazed you can be when you find yourself thinking, and then you come back to the mantra. So it's a process of releasing each thought one after the next. And going back to my computer analogy, it's like, on my computer, I might have 20 browser windows open in my Chrome or Safari or whatever I use, and they'll represent things that I'm working on. And in my mental browser, I could also have 20 tabs open. And when I meditate, I naturally go to each of those things that are on my mind. And by coming back to my mantra, it's like I'm closing those tabs down. So they'll be taking up less mental processing power afterwards. And that's how I can be more focused and more productive afterwards, because I've closed these things down. So even though I had a thought-filled meditation, which in the old days I would have thought of that as being a kind of failure, I now know that that's a necessary component of allowing me to be more focused afterwards. It means I have a busy meditation. A busy meditation is the price I have to pay to be more focused afterwards, which means that I don't think that I'm failing at meditation, which if I said to you now, hey, Kathy, clear your mind of thoughts.
Right.
Or if I said, try not to think of a neon yellow cat, you're going to think of a neon yellow cat. Okay.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a really good point, because myself as well, I know when I try meditate, I'm not perfect about the meditation, but I know it's really been helpful for me too. But I always feel like, I've got these thoughts coming through my mind, and how do you get rid of them? And so I think that's great. It's a good reminder that you're not a failure when you're doing that. It's just a natural part of it, and the mantra helps you to bring, have something to come back to. So that's good. Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah, and you have permission to think, because your mind's going to think anyway. And if you don't have that permission,
right,
you're going to give up, because none of us like failing at anything or being bad at anything. So it's having that permission, so that, because some meditations will be deeply relaxing, but some won't. And the more stress you have in your system, the more they'll be busy. But it doesn't mean that it's not working just because it's not enjoyable. It's like if you've not done any exercise for ages and you go out for a run, you're not going to be having an enjoyable time. Like I remember when I started running, my legs would really hurt. I'd be out of breath really quickly. But that doesn't mean that I'm not getting benefit from that. It doesn't mean that my heart's not getting blood pumped to it. It doesn't mean that I'm not getting lots of nice oxygen in my lungs or endorphins through my body, even though I'm not enjoying it. So it's kind of letting go of that idea of perfection and trying to master this thing, and just saying, I'm going to get benefit from it by practicing it, not minding what happens, and just gently coming back to my anchor every time.
No, that sounds great. It sounds much more relaxing and more forgiving, and something that anyone can do. It's not like you're doing it right or wrong. It's like it's your own practice. So that's great. Yeah, that's good.
And that idea of forgiveness, like you said, you're forgiving yourself for falling off the mantra every time. And that teaches yourself to be gentle with yourself,
Okay.
which is going to help with kind of habit change around alcohol, because we have this tendency to be guilty about doing things wrong. So alcohol can feed this cycle of guilt and shame, but you're teaching yourself to go, okay, that happened, I'm going to move forward. That happened, I'm going to move forward, which makes habit change a lot easier, because guilt is just going to add to your stress levels, which is then going to make you more likely to drink. So we want to leave that guilt behind because it's not helping us.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and there is so much guilt with alcohol and drug use too. So, okay, great, good information. Many of my readers are parents. They're concerned about their children. As I mentioned before, I'm having more drinking issues really than, and I don't know if it's because of the pandemic or what's going on, but it just seems like that's coming up more and more. So, do you have any suggestions for parents who are concerned about their children? And then also maybe thinking back, was there anything that your parents, when you were having a hard time, was there anything that they did that was helpful, that when you think back to that period?
Yeah. So I guess the first thing to do is to model good behavior. So if you think that your kids need a new way to relax and you're thinking of suggesting meditation, I always say that personal example is the best way to do it. So try meditation themselves, and rather than saying you should meditate, you say, hey, I've meditated and it helped me do this, because people respond a lot better to seeing examples of real world things happening rather than people lecturing at them. So also, like in fact with when I teach younger kids to meditate, I'll only teach them if their parents have already learned, which is one thing. But then I would also, a bit of advice would be to acknowledge the positive intention behind the drinking. Whatever anyone does ever, there's always a positive intention. Mm-hmm. So whether that is a way of escaping problems or reducing social anxiety, or well, there's a natural human desire to change our conscious state. That's kind of a natural thing. It's been happening for forever. And alcohol and drugs are a way of changing our conscious state, but they're not the only way. So, you can say, well, congratulations for having that desire to change your mental state, which is a spiritual desire. It's just not a spiritual way of executing that desire through alcohol or drugs. Whereas through meditation, we can experience different conscious states in a much more sustainable way. And it lets us remove ourselves from, especially as teenagers, there's lots of stuff going on, and you want a way to step away from that. And I'd see it as, you can have your life problems here in the middle, and alcohol is a way of kind of dumbing yourself down so that you're not thinking of them because you're below them. Mm-hmm. Whereas meditation is more helping you rise above them. So they're still there. With mm-hmm. alcohol, you can't see them because you've numbed yourself. Mm-hmm. But with meditation, you've got more distance. So you've got mental perspective. Mm-hmm. So a way to think about how meditation will help there is, if we give an analogy of being in a cinema. So if you're in a cinema and you're unfortunate enough to be in the front row, then the movie's going to seem very loud and overpowering. And maybe you just see a hand because you're so close, you can't really see the whole picture. Right. And it might be overly loud, overwhelming. So when we meditate, it's like we're taking a few steps back and going back a few rows, so that we're more like we're in the middle of the cinema. And now you can see, I can see the whole screen now. I can see that hand is connected to that guy over there. So you can see what's going on and put it in context. So that's like within our lives, when we meditate, it's like taking a breath and stepping back, and we can see, all right, rather than only having my own perspective on my problem, it's like I've stepped out and had more of a third person or fourth person view on it and say, okay, I'm a teenager having problems with my boyfriend. That's a common problem that, is a rite of passage. Mm-hmm. And the more you can kind of step out and see this third person view as well as your first person view, the easier things become, because you kind of put it in context. It's like, if you zoom out again, you can say, you know, we're just a small planet in this huge universe. It's that kind of, there's a massive scale of perspective you can take. We're just looking to go one step upwards so that you're not only within your own kind of personal view, because when you're in there, everything can seem like the biggest thing ever, but you're getting a little bit of perspective, which really helps. But with the parents, just to say, you know, acknowledge that the positive motivations behind what they're doing, what they're turning to alcohol for, and then just suggest another way to do it, rather than saying this whole area is wrong. You know, there's guilt, there's shame.
Right. Yeah, that's an excellent point. Right. Coming up with an alternative that'll give them, because you're right. I mean, they're getting something from the alcohol, so we need to turn around and give them something from another area. And meditation is a great way. I love your analogy with the movie theater. That's great. Yeah, I like that. Okay, good. All right, that makes sense. And being a role model too, I think, is totally, you know, right. It's your parents really need to be the role models and not make them feel more shame and guilt about the issue. So, okay, great. And then finally, how can people learn about you and your course, We Meditate to Quit Alcohol? So tell us a little bit about that. What could someone expect? And what do you want people to take away from your course? Yeah.
Yeah, great. So the course is designed, it's 31, so kind of a calendar month's worth of guided meditations. And you will get these 15-minute guided meditations over email. And you would do them anywhere you can find a little bit of relative peace and quiet. You'd sit on your sofa, put your headphones in, and listen to this meditation. And I would guide you through how to meditate. So learning this basic, ancient, powerful technique, and then kind of showing you how it's going to help with changing your habit with alcohol. So it's based around the technique, which is going to help you de-stress and find a new way to relax, and then reaffirming why it's going to help with your alcohol change. In the second week, we also bring in positive intentions to the end of the practice. So we bring up things like strength and resilience and those qualities which are going to help changing habit and sticking to habit change. So this goes over 31 days. And then, so after that, it will give you, you know, people find that not only do they get the benefit of that they're looking for in with the alcohol, but they often find that meditation has all these other benefits, like it helps you sleep and it helps you focus and it helps you do your schoolwork better. And alcohol was maybe just the way into it. So I get people to come to my website. So We Meditate to Quit Alcohol. If you Google that, or otherwise, I'm sure Kathy will provide the URL. Yeah. And for people who just want to try it, I offer a free trial. So if you scroll to the bottom, you can sign up for the free trial, which will give you, a sample of those meditations. And I mean, I always love getting feedback from people who've tried this, who say, look, I've been trying for 10 years, different techniques, and it's not worked. I'm now sleeping for the first time in months or years, or they've just found that it has worked. So I would always say that, you know, depending on the severity of the problem, you know, if you only have a moderate drinking habit, then it can work on its own. But if it's a more serious problem, then you definitely want to do it in conjunction with something more involved. So, you know, meditation is the 11th step of the 12 steps, so it can nicely fit in with that as a complement. Okay. But for those who, like myself, I never hit rock bottom, as I call it. It was more of a kind of positive choice to say, I'm not getting anything out of alcohol anymore. I'm waking up with a hangover 2 days a week. That's 100 days a year that I'm wasting.
Right. Yeah. Right. Absolutely.
That's a crazy amount of time. And that's 100 days of my days off, like 100% of my days off. So We Meditate to Quit Alcohol is the course. You can also find me on Instagram. Rory Kinsella Meditation is my name there, and I post, you know, positive things every day.
Okay, I'll find that link and you know, put all those links in the post. So Yeah, well, this is great. Rory, thank you so much. I really think it's, again, it's another tool for someone, whether they're thinking about stopping alcohol, in recovery from alcohol, or in the process of being in recovery, or as you mentioned, if they're working the steps and in that 11th step, they can weave this in too. So yeah, all good stuff. And I think it's something that definitely can help. And as we know, meditation is good for everybody. I mean, it really is. It just really is beneficial. So. Well, thank you for sharing what you're doing, and I will definitely send this out to my subscribers, and hopefully parents, they'll pass along this information to their kids, and I think it could be for drugs as well as alcohol. I mean, it doesn't matter. It could be for either issue. So yeah, definitely. Yeah. Oh, good.
Great.
Thanks.
Well, thank you for talking to me, Kathy. Lovely to speak to you.
Okay, and we'll be in touch. Thanks so much. Bye.
See you. Bye-bye.